Today I want to show you how I took my standard YouTube studio / home office desk area and turned it into this hyper efficient content production space. This setup in a super tiny 2x2 meter space allows me to record talking head videos from 2 different angles, grab overhead product and unboxing shots, shoot thumbnails, plus I can test and review certain products, edit all the content, and store a bunch of my gear. In this video, I'll share the design of this super small space, the different camera setups, the lighting setups, and everything else that makes this a highly functional workspace. I'll also leave links to the gear and all the things I talk about down in the video description, so you can go check that out if you're interested. All right, let's get into it. This room was originally a storage room until I turned it into a desk / YouTube area. And this is more or less what the room looked like for the past 2 years. All the walls were plain white, which I think doesn't always look that good on video, especially in such a small room. As you can see from these talking head shots from the past few years, I've gone from a blue-orange RGB look to a more neutral look, both of which were perfectly fine, but over time it just didn't fit the vibe I wanted in my videos. So for the wall color, I decided to go for a matte black color. This would create a much more cozy and moody vibe, but also help a lot with controlling the lighting. To contrast those black walls, I put up 4 of these wooden acoustic panels on the other wall. They add a nice neutral accent in the room, help with sound treatment, and apparently vertical lines also tend to make small spaces appear larger. Another thing that was important to me was having things in this space and in these YouTube talking head shots that kind of reflect a little bit more about me or about this channel. Let's just call it set dressing. I've got a few vintage cameras here, some that work and others that don't, a cool Edison light bulb for some extra cozy warm vibes, fake plants because there is no natural daylight in this room, and of course my silver play button. But these shelves on the side here were sitting a little bit dark. Let me just show you. So I decided to add these LED strips and diffuser channels underneath to light things up a little bit. And behind me here is a canvas print of an Oriflex 765. Now, if you've seen my first YouTube studio tour video, you'll already know this, but this frame isn't just there for aesthetic reasons. It actually covers a small basement window, which, as you can tell, doesn't look very nice. I recently did change the print from a regular frame to a canvas print because it doesn't reflect the light as much and just looks a lot better. All right, let's move on to essentially the most important part of this workspace, and that is the desk. This is pretty much where 90% of the entire YouTube studio lives on, and when you're having to work from a small space like this, it's vital to make everything as compact and functional as possible. I'm not doing YouTube full time, so the time I have to create these videos is limited and needs to be spent efficiently. The desk itself is the S2 Pro Plus sit-stand desk from Mateside. I've had it for over a year now, and the main thing I like about it is this size. This one is 160 by 80 centimeters, so there's enough space for everything I have mounted on here, plus I can comfortably work on it and also have enough room for top-down shots. It has a load capacity of 125 kilograms, which again is great given all the stuff that is on here, which we'll get to in a second. Adjusting the height of the desk is really easy by pressing the up or down buttons on the control panel, and I also have 2 memory buttons set for my sitting or standing height. So for example, when I press number 2, the desk will automatically go to my standing height, which is great, and I probably should stand more because I don't. Anyway, on the desk you'll see this desk shelf which matches the desk really nicely, and surprise, I actually made it myself. It's definitely not perfect, but I just didn't want to spend $200 or $250 on what is basically a shelf with 3 legs. This one I built out of a larger piece of acacia wood that I got from the hardware store. I had it cut to size, then rounded the corners and put some nice oil finishing on it. The legs are small pieces of cheap pine. Again, I had those cut to size and then painted them black. Finally, I glued everything together and got something that I would say looks pretty cool. And I think in total I spent maybe 50 bucks. Now, I actually got this idea from Thomas J. McClure's channel, and I'll leave the link to his video down below where he goes through all the steps to make one of these if you want to maybe build one yourself. Alright, before we get to all the gear that lives on this desk, I just want to mention the new desk chair that FlexiSpot hooked me up with. This is the FlexiSpot C7 ergonomic chair, and originally I had a more designy chair from IKEA, and this one was actually pretty terrible for my back, so I upgraded to a more affordable $150 or something ergonomic chair which I found on Amazon. That one was fine, but when I then got this FlexiSpot chair, it really felt like a true upgrade. This one is like $350 $50, which is still reasonably affordable in comparison to some other ergonomic desk chairs on the market. It's got really good lumbar support, which is adjustable. It's got adjustable armrests, an adjustable headrest. This one is the fully mesh version, which I personally really like. I think it's very, very comfortable. I also went for the one that has the footrest, but I honestly wouldn't recommend that one. It doesn't really go out far enough to really support your feet, and it also feels a little bit flimsy. I'm actually worried it might break off if I put too much weight on it. So yeah, save yourself like 40 bucks or something by not getting the footrest. But besides that, I'm really happy with this chair. Okay, so now let's have a look at all the gear that is on the desk here and everything that I use to make these videos here on YouTube, starting with the main talking head setup, so what you're looking at right now. Everything for this setup is mounted on the Viazon 6-in-1 desk mount. Originally, I was using all 6 mounts on here, but recently I modified it a little bit and removed a few things, so now it's not really a 6-in-1 anymore. The great thing about mounting things on the desk like this is that you've got a very compact but complete recording setup, which is always ready to go. So no setting up tripods or stands, everything is just mounted, and it literally takes like 5 or 10 minutes to start recording. The first thing I have mounted on here is my Sony a7 IV. And for these talking head shots, I'm using it with a Sigma 24mm f1.4 lens. This is the older version of that lens, so the autofocus isn't that great, but I use manual focus for these talking head shots anyway, so no real need to upgrade. Then I have the Elgato teleprompter mounted on there. And honestly, I cannot recommend this thing enough. I bought it about 10 months ago after first trying one of those smartphone teleprompters, and the setup on those is just a total pain in the butt, and I found that they never really work that well. The Elgato prompter, however, connects via USB-C to your computer, and you can do all the settings on there, so it's super easy plug and play. But the absolute best thing about this one is that it has something called voice sync. So the text on the prompter actually moves as you're speaking the words, which is just so incredibly useful. I honestly can't even imagine recording a video without this thing anymore. The only thing that is a bit unfortunate about using a teleprompter, and this is any teleprompter, not just the Elgato, is that you are limited to a 24mm lens on full frame. You can't go any wider than that because otherwise you'll see the edges of the prompter in the frame. Moving up on the desk mount, we'll find the monitor I'm using for these talking heads. This is the Portkeys LH7P. I have it attached to the desk mount using a small rig super clamp. This is a 7-inch Full HD touchscreen monitor, and the unique thing about this one is that it features wireless camera control with some Sony and Blackmagic design cameras. So I can control a bunch of settings such as color temperature, aperture, shutter speed, or ISO on my Sony a7 IV, as well as start recording directly on the monitor if I need to do that. You can even tap the focus on the monitor, which is a pretty awesome feature and something you don't see on a lot of other camera monitors. Besides that, the LH7P has all other common monitor features such as 3D LUTs, waveforms, false color, focus peaking, grids, anamorphic D-squeeze, and so on. It also has 4 customizable function buttons on the top, it's plenty bright at 1000 nits, and you can power it with NPF batteries. When I'm using it here though, I power it with a DC power cable. For audio, I'm using the Comica VM40 wireless shotgun microphone. I recently did a video about this mic and I've been using it as my main mic ever since. It can record 32-bit float audio internally, so no need to run a cable to the camera, plus I get much higher audio quality with that 32-bit float. But you can also record with a 3.5mm jack if you want to do that, or you can even use the wireless receiver and record into the camera like that. So you've got pretty much every recording option available on this mic. I have it mounted on this boom arm that came with the Viazon kit, and whenever I'm recording, the microphone just sits right out of frame. Another little piece of gear that I've had for years now, which I find incredibly useful, is this small wireless remote control for the camera. I use this to start and stop recording without having to reach over to the camera each and every time. This one is made by JJC. I bought it on Amazon and it's like half the price of the original Sony remote. I use this thing all the time and it's such a little thing that I find really improves my workflow, so I can highly recommend it. Next to the main camera, I have another desk mount, and this is the Small Rig overhead desk mount. Because I do a lot of product videos on this channel as well, I shoot a good amount of top-down overhead stuff for showing certain products or shooting unboxing videos. And until recently, I would always have to take out my tripod, move my desk chair, set up the tripod, mount the camera on there, and this whole process was just not very efficient. This small rig desk mount offers a permanent and more streamlined solution for shooting my overhead videos. I just extend the arm, mount the camera on there, plug in the monitor, and I'm good to go. And so far, it seems to be plenty sturdy and doesn't wobble. But what I like most about this one from SmallRig is that it folds up, so when I'm not using it, it doesn't take up much space and it's not in the way. The camera I use for my top-down shots is the Lumix S5 IIX, which I only just got very recently. Now, it's definitely overkill to have two cameras, but I use these cameras for other stuff as well, and when I'm not using them, I prefer to, for example, keep the A7 IV mounted on there so I can start recording more quickly. The big plus of the Lumix S5 IIX for overhead shots is that it can record in open gate. That means I can repurpose, for example, unboxing shots for vertical content as well. The lens I'm using for these shots is the Lumix 20-60mm f3.5 to f5.6, and this is, I believe, a kit lens, so really affordable. I bought it secondhand for, I think it was $180 because I needed a small zoom lens for this setup, and honestly it works perfectly and the shots look great. I also have a monitor permanently fixed on the SmallRig mount using a SmallRig Magic arm. Again, this might be overkill for some people, but I just wanted to have things permanently there to make the process of recording these videos as fast and efficient as possible. Having to set up or take down equipment or moving around cables each and every time just started feeling like a huge waste of time. Anyway, this is the Hollyland Mars M1. It's the first version of the Mars M1 they've released, and I've had it for about 1.5 years now, and it has been acting up from time to time, so I might need to swap it out soon, but for now and for this setup, it works fine. This one is also powered with a DC cable, so again, no batteries here to keep things more efficient. As far as lighting goes, there are two lights lighting this setup right now. My key light here is the Nanlite PavoSlim 120C, and this is an upgrade I've been wanting to do for a while now, because for the past 2.5 years I've had this newer NL480 LED panel, which definitely served its purpose, especially for how cheap that thing was, but it wasn't very bright, the quality of the light wasn't that good, and it was also kind of too small to have a nice wrap around the face. The PavoSlim 120C is a 60x30 RGB WW LED panel. It's super thin and lightweight, which makes it perfect for this setup. As you can see, I have it set up above my monitor against the wall, and there is no way I would be able to fit a big COB or even a small COB with a softbox here. I was also surprised at how incredibly bright this light is. I currently have it set at 7%, and let me just turn it up to 100. So this is 100%. Obviously that's way too bright, but you can tell that's a lot of output for a relatively small light like this. Besides offering a bicolor CCT range of 2700 to 7500 Kelvin, it also has full RGB, so you can set it to pretty much any color imaginable. It also comes with this pop-up softbox, so I can easily open or close the softbox if I need a bit more space here and would need to make the light more compact. I have the PavoSlim mounted on a newer wall mount, and these wall mounts are an amazing solution for small spaces like this because you don't need bulky light stands taking up floor space. Especially for my key light here, I simply wouldn't even be able to put a light stand anywhere in this corner. The arm turns in all kinds of directions, and it, for example, allows me to swing out the PavoSlim and tilt it down, which then turns the PavoSlim into a perfect top-down light for my overhead shots. But I can also, for example, use it as a colored rim light when I'm doing other kinds of product shots or tutorials. The second main light in this setup is again off the floor, mounted on a newer wall mount on the other side of the room. This is the Colbor CL220R, which is a 220 watt RGB COB light. And this light also has a few different functions in this studio. So for example, for these talking head shots, I have the Colbor projection mount attached to it with a striped gobo inserted. And this is what's creating this accent light on the wall you can see behind me here, just to add a bit more depth and interest to the shot. Secondly, I can use this as a key light if I want to shoot from a different angle. I can just attach a softbox to the light, and with the wall mount, it's super easy to get it in position. So this is what this second talking head shot looks like, and I actually kind of like the look of it, but I haven't really used it for any other videos yet because it does take a little bit more time to set up. But what do you guys think? Do you prefer this shot or the other talking head shot? And thirdly, I will use this as a huge overhead light for product shots, thumbnails, product tutorials, and so on. The ceiling in this room is white, so that means I can simply bounce the CL220R off the ceiling to create a very large and very soft overhead light. So in combination with the Pavo Slim, I have a variety of different lighting setups for pretty much any situation I find myself in when recording these videos. Now, as you can tell, I don't have any lights on the floor, and that is extremely useful in a small space like this. But there are occasions where I do need to set up a light on a light stand, and that is when I bring out the iFootage Cobra 2 round base monopod. Comparing this to a regular light stand, you can immediately tell why I have one of these. It takes up way less floor space, and at the same time it's still super sturdy. Now moving on to all the other stuff on this desk here, let's call it the editing or office part of this workspace. The monitor I've been using for a few years now is the BenQ PD3220U. I really love the size of this monitor, plus it looks sleek with the thin edge design. And if you're a Mac user like me, this monitor makes it super easy to ensure correct color calibration. It has an MBook or MacBook mode to match the best color consistency between your MacBook and the monitor. But there's also a bunch of other preset color modes you can choose from, like Rec 709, Adobe RGB, sRGB, and so on. On top of the monitor is the BenQ screen bar Halo. And honestly, I never thought of using a screen bar until BenQ sent me this one like 2 years ago, and now I can't imagine working without it anymore. Besides helping to reduce eye strain, it creates a perfect light on the desk without being disturbing or glaring onto the screen. Plus, it doesn't take up any desk space like a regular desk lamp would. This one from BenQ also has a backlight, and it has a remote where you can adjust things like brightness and the color temperature. Now you can definitely find more affordable screen bars, but I will say that this one is probably one of the best ones out there. Behind the monitor I have my 14-inch MacBook M1 Pro, which is where I do all of my editing on, and this sits in a wooden MacBook stand made by Calibri. Connected to my MacBook, I have the Ivanki Fusion Dock Max 1, which lives under the desk shelf. And this dock offers me a bunch of extra connections and allows me to keep my MacBook tucked away in the back. In the front, it has 4 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, a headphone jack, an SD and a micro SD card slot. And this is great to easily connect SSD drives or other devices and for unloading SD cards. In the back there are another 2 USB-C ports, 3 USB-A ports, 2 HDMI ports, an Ethernet port, an optical audio port, and another 3.5mm audio port. So besides having more than enough connections, 4 of these USB-C connections allow 40 GB per second transfer speeds, so transferring footage or working off of SSDs is seamless. It also connects to my monitor via Thunderbolt, which has the ability to offer me 6K at 60 Hz. And if that isn't enough, this Fusion Dock Max 1 powers my Mac and basically solves the entire cable and connection mess with only one dual USB-C cable. So I can honestly say that this single device has cleaned up this desk and made the workflow with my MacBook a lot smoother and more efficient. When it comes to the keyboard, this is the Keychron K17 Pro mechanical keyboard. I used to have a very cheap Amazon keyboard, but for the longest time I've been considering upgrading to a proper mechanical keyboard. And I finally decided to go for the Keychron K17 Pro because I wanted to have a numpad and because I like the aesthetic of it. Plus, it also makes for a nice looking prop in top-down shots. My mouse is the Logitech MX Master 3S, which is, if you've ever used it, you'll agree, hands down the best mouse money can buy. The headphones I use when editing videos are the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pro headphones. They are closed studio headphones, and I like them because they offer excellent sound quality, but also they sit very comfortably on your head for long periods of time. Now, another really important part of this space is storage, because it's pretty nuts how much gear you end up accumulating over the years, and it was really important to me to have some sort of organization system. A lot of the more important or most used gear lives in this IKEA Alex drawer under the desk. One thing I added to this are these divider organizer thingies. So they're basically just pieces of plastic you can connect together, and then it divides your drawers. And this is a huge help in keeping these drawers somewhat organized and saves me time because I don't have to constantly look for things. It also makes for a pretty tidy looking lens drawer, which I think looks pretty cool. The drawer in the middle is a charging drawer. I velcroed a power strip to one side of the drawer and then have all of my charging devices connected to that and tucked away in this drawer. Obviously, when things are charging, I keep the drawer open for air circulation. The great thing about this power strip is that it has individual on-off switches for each outlet. So if I want to only charge one thing, I only turn on that one switch. I also cut a hole in the back of the Alex unit to feed out the power cable of that power strip, so everything looks nice and clean. Next to the desk, I have a bit more storage in this shelf unit that I found on Amazon. I like this one because it's black with these fake walnut shelves, so it fits the aesthetic of the room. Here I store some more gear like different lighting equipment, a gimbal, drones, lenses, and things like that. But I also have these small parts organizer boxes and this organizer unit that I got from the hardware store. And these are great to keep all sorts of screws, Allen keys, filters, rigging gear, and just all sorts of bits and pieces that otherwise just get lost or make a mess. Alright, that pretty much sums up what I have going on here in this little room and everything I use to create these videos. Now, a very important thing I want you to know is that I didn't get all of these things all at once. This workspace is something that I've slowly put together piece by piece over the years to make this into a place that is efficient and functional and where I love to work. So don't leave this video thinking you need a bunch of gear to make videos. For the longest time, I didn't have half of these things and was still able to create videos that were getting views. So don't let gear or fancy setups stop you from doing what you want to do. Anyway, that's it for this one. I really appreciate you watching and hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!